Remember, folks, it's the quality of the information that counts, not the quality of the video. So, here, I've made one move in E equals mc squared. It's wrong. It's E equals m over c squared. That's the only move I've made, and I've built my entire reality model of 2 years around that manoeuvre, but I only just realised that that's what I'd done. So, I can then say that the energy equals 10 to the 42 metres to the 4 to the quantum over quantum of c squared. And I can tell you where I got all those from. So the 10 to the 42 is the difference between seconds, 10 to the minus 34 joule seconds, forget the units, but it's 10 to the minus 34. And the speed of light measured is 10 to the 8. So the difference is that the difference in energy between the second and the metre is 42 times greater. So hence it's 10 to the 42 metres. The metre to the 4, I've talked about, this is the bending moment that appears at the centre of the reality model. The very, very centre of it, where the energy enters, the energy of infinity enters at the 0 point, and it enters creating a bending moment to the power of Q. And it does the magic thing, which I'll show you at the end. And it's over, here is the quantum again, the mass energy, and it's the structure of c squared. So, we're seeing E equals m over c squared presented with images of energy. We've got potential energy of bending to the power of mass energy, a conscious mass moment. And then we've got the mass energy, the conscious mass moment, on the structure of c squared. Now, c squared is the structure of the energy. It exists as a real structure when you have the power of pi, because the relationship of the radius is formed from the relationship of the circumference, not the other way around. So, of course, the radius is always pi, providing that the bubble of c squared is round. The bubble of energy is described by c squared, it must be round for the pi relationship to work. And so what that means is that we end up over here with the 1 of entropy to the power of quantum over 137 arc seconds, and this is the fine structure constant explained. It does have units, they're arc seconds, and it's the entropy of 1 that isn't quite 1 because it's impacted by the quantum. So at the end of each moment, the energy is different, and that energy always becomes 1 because it's the 1 of entropy when you've only got 2 bodies, if you see what I mean. So here's the equation laid out, and you can look at my other videos of the pictures, knowing that this is the same thing in equation form. Hopefully physics can understand it. So I've explained the energy, the c squared, the structure of the bubble, the 10 to the 42, the difference between the two and the potential energy, and then here is the conscious mass moment on the bottom as a numerator, on the bottom as an integer, and at the top as a power of a power. So, quantum of mass energy, Q squared. So all we've done was remove the kilogram entirely for the moment, and that mass energy equivalence is gone. We've got mass energy equals a quantum of mass energy, which is the conscious mass moment. And it's a little engine because it self-replicates. It goes from infinite square of the conscious mass, and that is when it's actually the square is working as an operative on c squared. And that gives you energy, temperature, weight, and sets the potential difference. The second action of this, of the quantum of mass energy, is the moment of consciousness, which occurs here. When the square is inside, it's realized. Energy is realized. And then here at the bottom, we have the entropy 1 explained when the Q looks like the Q. So the 2 moves from here to here. When the eye opens, bing, and then it makes entropy here. So the E is equivalent to mass energy now. Yeah? We could move the c square over there and say the energy of c squared equals mass energy. Mass energy equals the conscious mass moment. And so I've just split that up down here with the correct units. So you can see the units of the energy now down the bottom. And that's quantum energy equals c, meters per second. Should have written that there. But what that means is the power, the quantum actually goes over here and becomes a 2 when it's in that phase. You get me? The 2, so it's 2 bending moments over h squared. And h is our favourite friend there, Mr. Planck. Mr. Planck's not constant as the h squared. And so we end up with pi to a power of quantum, making the pi slightly less than 1. 1 pi, yeah, the 1 has got an operative on it, so it's slightly less than 1. So it's pi times 10 to the 42 seconds squared meters, capital N to the 2. Okay, so that's E equals mc squared explained to the best that I can manage. I'd need you to ask me a question and I can explain it in detail if there's something you don't understand. And there is bound to be, because this is complex. So we come to the second page, and this is the page of wonder here. So that the N2 that was formed from the energy on the bottom there, yeah, we've got energy does work, creates the meter. The energy of the two energies together, the bending moment, creates this second energy, and N2. And it's N2 because it represents the tension of the bending moment from my previous drawings. It shows the H, and then the N is the tension in the surface. And it represented here. So the tension of the surface creates NEN. And NEN represents the triple lock of nitrogen. Nitrogen can only exist as two atoms. It cannot be a single body. And so what we're describing here in that first page was was temperature moving in nitrogen between the two bodies, between 0 temperature and 1 temperature, when there's only two bodies. And they're joined by a triple lock bond of nitrogen N2. And this is where we come to what life is all about, because nitrogen is an energy that everything uses. Currently, plants use it via photosynthesis, and then animals eat the plants to get the nitrogen to complete the nitrogen cycle. But there's a gap in the evolutionary ladder that some species should breathe nitrogen directly, and that's us. So the nasal breathing is about this triple lock bond, because we can see down the bottom where we've got a relationship between the two with mass energy, us, and our behaviour in terms of love and evolution, and then it's the power of that N. So the action of continued existence of C2, T squared, the structure of energy, creates a new energy, N nitrogen with E, energy, light. So the E represents the light that is created by the motion of energy, of entropy of temperature from 0 to 1, creates this triple lock bond. So there's light. Science hasn't got that one, that's new for them. So then we come to it creates effects measured by N, little newtons, the unit of meters per second squared, the unit of the force. And so the nitrogen power is meters per second squared, but that's the quantum squared to make the square. And the little n is the quantum lives on it, meters per second squared, that's gravity, and it's variable by the power of the quantum. And that's measured by Mr. Planck, the H. So then we have something lovely, I think, here. Okay? So we've got light, power, creates force, gravity, equals this thing here, which is 0 degrees kinetic energy to the power of the quantum. So what that means is in the two-body problem when it jumps between the two nitrogens, as this moves from 0 to 1, when there's only two bodies, there's only two temperatures, 0 and 1, creating that energy. This is it. It's the kinetic energy of the movement of the temperature in 2 dimensions. So it's quantized, so that the space is created into the machine. The 0 point energy creates the structure of C squared into a 3-dimensional body. And it's that motion of the 2 dimensions being created into 3 which quantizes the temperature. The temperature is a temperature. It then goes through the mechanisms of creation of 3D from 2D. Once that 3D is created in the second body, the temperature moves. That's called quantized. It goes in steps. And that's over here. So K equals 1 at the end. So light speed velocity, meters per second, C, as you measure it, equals mass frequency and in the conscious mass moment itself. So that the vibration of matter, electrons and all that stuff, atoms, that's vibration. That's got a frequency, and that creates mass, who we are, the matter. And then the kinetic energy of existence. So the fact that c squared exists and has momentum and is carried from moment to moment by the gravity, keeping it spinning, is what keeps the machine running at this amazingly, incredibly powerful energy of 10 to the 42 meters to the 4. It's huge. So that's what explains why this tiny effect of gravity can control this huge energy of 10 to the 42, because it's the momentum that carries it from moment to moment. So there we are, and there's a relationship between the two. And here's c that is familiar to us coming out. And you can see that c is variable. So I put c squared, it's the velocity of v squared. It should be pi. It should be pi, 3.142 should be the measured speed of light. And the fact that it isn't shows that everything is wrong, and that measure of h is the measure of the depletion of oxygen. So I'm saying the speed of light should be pi meters per second, yeah, from the 10 to the 42, because the second is no longer minus 34, you get me? The second is just a second, it sets the baseline, so the speed, the velocity is 42 times greater than that energy. And that's the real value, which is what it should be the most when it's at its maximum efficiency. I have no idea what it is now, because they've put the speed of light as a fraction of a number they found years ago. So it's rubbish. What I need is the 1799 meter standard, so I could see what is the speed of light. Not just me, the whole bloody world, especially physics. Because it proves that the speed of light is not a constant value. It proves that gravity is not a constant value. And it proves that h is the measure that controls it all. And we control h through our behaviour of breathing. I hope that's enough. If someone wants to ask me a question and give me some money to make me a decent video, I'm more than happy to help and do this. Because all I want to do is change the world. It's not much to ask, is it? Love rules. Do the work. Choose.